Welcome to Box Out Banter. I'm Chris Okamura. Joining me as always, Jordan Christmas. How's it going, Jordan?
It's good that we are recording this podcast now at this time because the Sixers are playing the Pistons right now without Joel Embiid, and even with better players, the team is still a dumpster fire when he doesn't play, and we're getting destroyed right now. So I knew we were going to lose today, but I'm ready ahead for our big showdown on Wednesday, by the way. The Sixers and the Lakers are playing each other. So I kind of figured this would be an L. Embiid wouldn't play, but it's still, this team is awful when he's not playing. So I'm glad we're recording this podcast.
Yeah, so I do want to get into some Ben Simmons talk because I have some questions for someone that watches the Sixers way more than I do. But first, before we get into anything like that, I do to start on like maybe a little bit of a downer, but just some reminiscing. Kobe tomorrow is 1 year anniversary for all of the kind of madness that started off 2020 last year.
Yeah,
and I was trying to talk to my wife.
Sorry,
what were you saying?
I was saying it's one of those. His death was one of those, like, I remember exactly everything that happened, and with that entire day, like I remember.
I know that day.
Yeah,
that day's so clear to me, and it's something that like I was trying to explain to my wife because my wife isn't a sports person at all.
Yeah,
and really like I'm her only introduction to any kind of thing sports related, and so. To me, and I don't know how you feel about this, and again, I know I don't want to like lessen the significance or make this as significant, but it felt so much to me like how I felt at not like during 9/11 of just like the world stopped for me.
Yeah.
And was just like, it's all I could think about. I knew exactly what was going on that day.
Yep.
Like I still remember it so clearly. And it's stuff of just like, I don't know if I've ever been hit by something that hard, because I mean, even 9/11 was something where it's like I was in the 4th grade. So how old was I? Probably like 10.
Mm-hmm. I remember that day vividly too.
Yeah, and I remember talking about 9/11.
Well, as a kid, like I was in 4th or 5th. I was in 5th grade when that happened.
Yeah, so I was like 9 or 10, and so I remember that day just kind of being like, unaware, like. Not unaware of what was happening, but just kind of like, you're a kid. You don't have a full scope of what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, I remember so much about that day. And I remember watching on TV and being like, what am I watching?
Me too. Yeah.
Where I just couldn't grasp it.
It was like like a movie. It was like, because at that point you're like watching, you're consuming a bunch of stuff that's made for kids, right? And that felt like a movie that was happening in real life. That was the first time where it was like, wow, this is some like this. Basically, when I say movie, I mean like stuff you don't expect to happen, like in real life, and it just happened right in front of your face.
Yeah,
definitely. It was just one of those surreal moments, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. The surrealness of it is what I still remember as a kid. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty insane to think about. And so like I remember with Kobe, it was such a weird thing because my daughter, I think we just talked about this. So my daughter goes over to my in-laws' place on Mondays. So I remember Monday, like Tuesdays are kind of my day to sleep in and kind of rest up because I don't have a screaming 4 or 5-year-old with me. And so it becomes a day where it's like I can just relax, and then she'll come home later in the afternoon. And so I remember sleeping, and my dad comes over, and my dad never wakes me up. My dad's the kind of person that's like very, like he feels like sleep is the most important thing that you can do with your body and like rest up and all that kind of stuff. So he's very cognizant of sleep and like letting people sleep and getting their rest. And so my dad rushes in and he wakes me up, and I was like. And again, all that being said, when my dad wakes me up, it's like
when you wake up, immediately something's wrong,
Yeah, I'm like, so when he woke me up and I saw it was him, and I was like, what's going on? What happened? And he goes, Kobe died. And then my first question was, Kobe who?
Yep.
And he goes, Kobe. And I go, no, what? And it hit me, and I immediately like launched across my bed to grab my phone. and immediately looked it up, and I was just scrolling for what seemed like 2 hours, and it was stuff like, man, I was scrolling through, and I was tearing up, and I was crying, and I was like, this isn't real, it can't be real. And then I don't know if you remember, there was a period of time where we thought Rick Fox was on the plane.
Yep. Yeah. And I know you've worked with Rick before and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I know Rick, and I know Kyle, his son. And so I was calling them, and I was like, is this real? Are you okay? And of course, Rick didn't answer the phone. Kyle didn't answer the phone. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so now after them not answering, your mind's just racing even more at that point.
Yeah, and I guarantee, and it's not just me; it's a lot of people that were doing that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It was just such a shock. And again, something else I was trying to explain to my wife was the rest of that day. I don't know how it was up north, but like in LA, I've never seen the city like that before.
Well, I was in LA, so
okay.
At the time, like I wasn't living there. So here, if you were,
give me your rundown.
So here's it was that weekend. I went down to Anaheim. I live in Sacramento. I went down to Anaheim to see Motion City Soundtrack and hang out for the weekend with my best friend Alex. Motion City Soundtrack was on tour again after taking like a 5-year hiatus, so we jumped on the opportunity immediately, months ahead of time, had it planned out and everything. And so I went up there that Friday. Yeah, that Friday, saw the concert, hung out Saturday, just in LA and Anaheim, and then we stayed at an Airbnb, and my buddy Alex needed a train ride on Sunday to go back to his home, to go back to I'm trying to remember which part of LA he lives in, but he needed a train to go back home. So I dropped him off at Union Square that Sunday morning. It was around like 10:30 or 11, and I was going to drive home. I had like a 6-hour drive ahead of me. So I'm about in 30 minutes into driving, and I see a text from Alex, my friend that I drop off, and he just said Kobe, and I was like, okay. It was just a one word. He just sent like Kobe exclamation question mark, and I was like, okay. And so I'm like driving, and like it's real when friends and people who don't watch sports start texting you. And so some of my frat brothers started texting me that I know don't give a damn about sports. And they were just like, yo, what's going on with this Kobe stuff? So I was like, okay, wait, what the fuck is going on? So I pulled over to the side of the road. On the highway. I'm scrolling through Twitter. Not thank God, but luckily for me, I was in a spot where Wi-Fi wasn't dead. So I was scrolling through Twitter, and I see the TMZ Twitter link. They're like, Kobe dies in a helicopter crash in Calabasas. And I sat there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, trying to process what the hell I'm reading. I'm like going through, everybody's confirming it. Woj confirmed it. I remember seeing the tweet from Woj as well. And then rumors started flying around about, like you said, like Rick Fox was on the plane. Some of Kobe's, young athletes he was coaching, and the athletes' parents were on the. It's like facts or not facts, but information's just flying in, right? And you don't know what's what. But I remember I was sitting there in the car for like 15 minutes, like trying to process what the hell I just read, right? And so then I'm driving home for like 5 or 6 hours. I'm wondering what the hell's going on. I'm trying to process it all. I stop at a gas station about midway through my trip, and there's like 4 or 5 people. They have Kobe jerseys on and Laker gear on, and they're filling up their cars, and they're just like, dude, they were like shook. They were one of them was crying, I remember, and the other one was looking at me like, dude, like I felt like I lost like a member of my family. And I wasn't even in LA at this point. I was at a Vallejo or a Valerio gas station, like off the 99, right? Yeah. And I remember I made it home to Sacramento by the end of the day. I was listening to Bill Simmons' emergency podcast that he did with Chris Ryan about it. And I needed to fill up again so I can make the last 30 minutes of my trip back home. And I walked into an AM PM, and the Pelican-Celtics game was going on that night. And I remember there was a big TV in the AM PM. I walked in and the game was on, and at the bottom of the ESPN thing, like on the left-hand corner, there's like this big like Rip Kobe from 1978 to 2020. And my brain could not process anything I read. And then I got home, and I grew up hating the Lakers, although I loved watching Kobe, admittedly, even though it was fun rooting against him. And I cried. I'm not even a Laker fan, and I started crying because, you know, you have a more deeper connection with Kobe because you're a Laker fan, but we're both huge basketball fans. We played the sport growing up. We watched it growing up. We have our heroes from that sport growing up. And Kobe, Tim Duncan, Vince Carter, T-Mac, Iverson, and then, of course, transitioning into the Melo, LeBron, Wade, Chris Bosh era. Like, those were the players we grew up watching, right? And had cemented us as basketball fans. And Kobe was a large part of that. And it hit me. So it was a wild day. And I still can't process it to this point because so much shit happened in the days and weeks and months after Kobe's death that I couldn't even process it. Like, I remember when Michael Jackson died and the world stopped, and it like took us like a good week and a half to process what happened, especially for like people that are like my parents' age and stuff like that who grew up listening to Michael Jackson. I don't even think we had proper time to grieve or even process like it's still weird to say like he's gone. I still talk about him in present tense, and I still watch his highlights, you know? And yeah, it was a shitty day for sure. It was a tough day. And I couldn't imagine you being a Laker fan and everybody in LA. Like, I went back to Anaheim a month later for DreamHack, and I took an Uber from LAX to my friend's house, and we literally had an hour-long conversation about Kobe, his life as a Laker fan. His sons grew up Laker fans. There were Laker flags everywhere when we were driving on the highway, like big Kobe flags, like hanging up off of construction cranes and shit. And you could just feel the devastation. It's a day I'll never forget.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, I was trying to explain to my wife where it's such a different thing. And again, I can't think of any athlete, and I don't think we'll ever see any athlete that had a connection to a city like Kobe did. And I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe to LA was such a different thing than any other athlete. We watched him grow up. We were with him through all this stuff. Like, I remember when I was my best friend is a kid that moved here from, I forget where he moved from, but he moved here in the 3rd or 4th grade, and he was a new kid and, you know, kind of a loner. And the only reason I started talking to him was because the first day of school he came in a Kobe jersey, and we bonded over that, and we bonded over Kobe, and we bonded over all that stuff. And it was a thing where it's like, oh, like that when I first heard, he was the first person I texted, and you know, we had to talk about it, and we talked about like, yeah, that's why we met. That's how it's because of Kobe. It's because of all that. It's because of that bond. It's because of love for Kobe, right?
Yep.
And like any interaction I've had in LA with Laker fans, like I've walked into some of the scariest neighborhoods imaginable,
right?
In Los Angeles, and like it freaks my wife out too, because I'll walk into like Compton or like, you know, and I'll walk into like some sketchy areas with and she's like, why aren't you freaking out? And I was like, or why are you like so calm? I was like, dude, I got this Laker hat on. I was like, we're good. I was like, because the thing is, like, I walked into neighborhoods like that and like had some amazing interactions with people. and like played basketball with people in some of those neighborhoods. And it's like, yeah, dude, when you're a Laker fan, like, yeah, it's a dangerous neighborhood, and like you should, but like there's people there that are genuinely just good people.
Yeah.
And like as soon as you have that connection with people, like the Laker connection in LA is such a different thing. And it's so funny when I was thinking about the whole Clipper marketing campaign last year, where remember the whole marketing campaign last year was like, we're the kings of LA.
Yeah,
I
forgot. Wow, I forgot. I saw a stupid billboard when I drove down to Anaheim the first time that weekend. It was some crazy. It was a Paul George Kawhi billboard, giant one, and it
was it the rerun the city?
Yeah, rerun the city. Yep, that's what I was trying to remember what the slogan was, but it was rerun.
So so that was their whole marketing campaign last year of like, we're the new team of LA, like all this stuff. And it makes me laugh, right? And it's kind of the funny thing of like, they honestly, like, even if the Lakers could be bad for the next decade, but it's the connection that they have with the city that's
we literally just saw it early in the 2010 decade when the Lakers were dog shit, especially post Achilles Kobe, and the Clippers were still, I guess, how you view the Lob City Clippers, especially at the tail end of that era, they were still a good playoff team or a contender for a conference finals, and it's still a Laker town. Nobody gave a shit.
And like, so that was such a funny thing to me to look at and go like, wow. And the Kobe's death was such a thing where
it really showed that, like,
right. I know it's a Lakers town. I know what Kobe meant to the city, but I think even I underestimated that, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a crazy thing to think about of what it was. I think it's a combination of like his connection to the city and like him coming in at 18, and we watched him become a man and become a father and become just a leader and all this stuff, right? And like an advocate for women's sports and like all this stuff. I think like that's where a lot of people don't understand like how much he did for women's athletes and being the hashtag girl dad stuff. And for me, having a daughter, like that was another thing for me to have him as a hero, right?
Yep.
And a role model to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from the time I was 5 or 6 years old, like he's been my hero and sort of the person I look up to. And it's like the thing where someone put it best. I think it was maybe not Paul Pierce or Stephen A. Smith. Someone said that, when Kobe's death, the world lost a legend, but the LA lost a superhero.
Yeah.
Like, and it's such a different thing. It's a different thing in LA than it is anywhere else. And again, I'm not downplaying his effect on the rest of the world, but like his impact on the city of Los Angeles is so, like, you could feel it. The whole city was down. Flower shops were giving out flowers for free downtown.
Yeah, I remember seeing a tweet from I think it was Zach Schwartz. He tweeted about.
I worked with Zach.
Yeah, and so you saw the tweet then where he was like, he was gonna give money to the florist for flowers and she was like, no, she didn't take his money, and she gave him purple and gold flowers to put at by the Staples Center, where there was like. And that's the other thing too. Like, we really cannot underscore, like, for me, all parts of this was shitty, but like seeing how the city mourned and honored him and stuff, it really illustrated that it was a Kobe and Lakers town for me. Like, that was just a back of my mind thought, like you just brought up, like the Clippers could not, like, that was where I was like, okay, like any talk about like the Clippers ruling LA or whatever, like that, just like we could put that to rest for the rest of our lives. Like the city lost a legit superhero, like Paul Pierce said, and for us as basketball fans, we lost a pillar of NBA history. Like, no matter, because Kobe's such a polarizing basketball player. Is he overrated? Is he underrated? Whatever. You cannot talk historically about basketball without bringing up Kobe Bryant. That's point blank, period. I think everybody in the Kobe discourse can at least agree on that. And we lost a pillar. And I'm sure for you, as being a father of a daughter, like the fact that he lost Gianna, that Gianna was perished in the plane too, and she was gone. That just broke my heart. And
remember, the original report was that all 3 girls were with him.
Yeah, that was the other thing too. Like, so much stuff was flying around at the time. I wasn't sure who else was on the plane. I knew there were 7. I knew there were 7 others that everybody was mentioning, but it was like anywhere from like all 3, his whole family, whatever. Like, there was just so much misinformation flying around. And once you get the concrete facts and what's starting to come out, it was already heartbreaking, but the pit of your stomach is just widening into this black hole of just uneasiness and sorrow,
and
you know?
So, and the thing that I was talking about, it might be a little morbid to talk about, and it might be something that's like, I shouldn't say it, but still, to me, it's such a, calming is the wrong word, but it gives me some peace of mind or whatever, that if they both had to go, that they went together. Some people have mentioned this before. I think Kobe's wife Vanessa said that at the when they had the memorial at Staples Center. When they had that huge memorial, it was February 24th. And she said, and she basically said the same thing, like, because you hear about how Gianna is so much like Kobe, more than the other daughter, and you see it, and you saw it in her games too. When you saw clips that would surface around the internet, man, she had the fadeaway, and whenever like you just see her like standing around when teams are shooting free throws or whatever, like during the game, and she's standing there, she has that Kobe face of just like, she had the Mamba face of focus, like she was just locked in, and it's like, god damn, that is a spitting image of Kobe right there, you know? It is. And it's it does give me a little bit of peace of mind to know that like she's
with him.
She's with him, right?
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
And so, like, you know, that's if there's any kind of like thing to take away from that, I think that's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But kind of like getting away from that stuff. So Ben Taylor put out Thinking Basketball put out his Kobe Greatest Peaks today.
I need to. I haven't been on YouTube much today, so I didn't see that drop.
Yeah, so he put that out today, and just talking about Kobe as a player. I think that was part of it too. Of not only did LA watch him grow up, and LA watched him, be a man and do all these things like we were talking about, but on the floor, Kobe came around at kind of the perfect time, where with YouTube and social media and the highlights, like all of Kobe had the coverage of his entire career that like Jordan and Magic and Bird didn't really have, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you think about like the minute to minute, like everything he did was every highlight,
dissected
everything, right?
Yeah.
And so, Kobe, the mystique around Kobe, like, dude, when you throw away trash
and in a waste basket, you say Kobe.
Yeah, you shoot anything, you yell Kobe, right? And like that sort of his cultural impact is so huge.
Just the way you say it too, Kobe.
And so, yeah, I think him on the basketball court is such a unique thing.
Wait. Before. I wanted to bring some light levity, but it's relevant. Yeah. Do you want to tell the story about how you didn't give a lecture, but you sternly worded to a kid that's not how you shoot a paper ball into a trash can?
So I was at the mall with my family, and again, my wife's not a sports person at all, and there's these like, I want to say like 13, 14-year-old kids walking through the mall, as kids do, causing a ruckus, right? And so one of them throws away a paper, like a wrapper of something, and throws it in the trash can and yells, "Steph!" Right? and it goes away. And I walked over there and I was like, "Nah, you don't do that, especially in LA. You don't do that." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "That's disrespectful." And then I looked at one of his friends. I was like, "What do you yell?" he goes, Kobe. And I was like, that's right. That's what's up. And I high-fived all of them. And the kid that yelled Steph was like, you right. And high-fived me. And I walked back and my wife was like, why'd you do that? I was like, I need to teach the next generation.
Yeah, you need to set the standard. Like, we do not say one, it only works with 2-syllable names. But
yeah.
But especially like even like I wonder how many people like back in the day shouted like Jordan, or I'm sure there were some, but like Kobe is like so iconic, you know? Like,
yeah.
And
definitely.
but yeah, that was I just wanted to bring that story on record for the podcast because that was hilarious when you told.
Yeah, it was it's kind of thing of like, hey man, there's a pecking order, there's a respect. Steph's the greatest shooter of all time, but he doesn't have that clout yet.
Yeah, he doesn't have. The Kobe already kind of owns that corner. Like, sorry,
nothing replaces that, and like that kind of brings to the next point of Kobe. In my opinion, is the greatest like tough shot taker and maker ever. Where you watch some of his stuff and it comes down to stupid levels of confidence and a high level of skill and a certain bit of cockiness ahead of like even more so than the confidence, just a little bit of cockiness of like, dude, Kobe would take some of the worst, craziest, most like what the fuck are you doing shots I've ever seen and nail them. And it was something where you would I would scream at my TV, no, and then he'd make it. You go, well, all right, that's okay.
And then from my end, you're watching Kobe like take these crazy fadeaways. Like a defender will stay down on his pump fake on the block, right? And Kobe's pumping, and the defender just gets closer up into his airspace, and then a double or a third guy will come over, and he tries to shoot the shot anyway, and you're watching like, okay, yes, that is exactly the type of shot we want him to take, and he makes it, and you're just sitting there just like, is this dude serious? like that's I'll never forget it. And I brought it up before on the podcast, but like one of my favorite memories of Kobe was just I was rooting hard for the Suns to beat him in the 2010 Western Conference Finals. I knew they weren't going to win, but I thought like if they stole a game here or there and make the series weird, they could possibly squeeze it out. The Ron Artest air ball buzzer beater, or not air ball, but he caught the air ball and laid it up at the buzzer, swing games like that. So it's game 6 in Phoenix. The Lakers lose. They go back to LA for game 7 of that Western Conference Finals. And the Suns were clawing their way back. They were making a run in the fourth quarter. And Kobe hit some of the most stupid shots I have ever seen somebody take. Like, He hit 2 fadeaways over Grant Hill, and then the last one, it was one of those classic Grant Hill stayed down on Kobe's pump fake. Kobe pumped like 2 more times, and then hits this fadeaway right over him. And right after he makes it, he gave Alvin Gentry a pat on the ass, just like, hey, like, you tried to stop me, but good job, but I'm still that dude. And the Lakers ended up winning that series. Like, like I said, I'm going to have to think about it, but it's not like I could sit here and be like, I vehemently disagree with what you said. Like, Kobe is, if you want to talk about best tough shot makers in NBA history, Kobe has to be up there. Like, he has to be at the very top, or if not like top, anywhere from like the top 5 pretty much. Like,
and it's pretty insane to think about. And the thing that was crazy is Kobe had the ability to make all those tough shots and the insane ones. But also, this is something that Jalen Rose brought up. They were, of course, talking to Jalen Rose about the 81-point game. And he brought up a point that I never really thought about before. When you watch the highlights of the 81-point game, they're not really highlights. They're kind of boring. Because he's not really doing anything special. He's just hitting everything. And
like
he's making the right play. He's hitting every shot.
some of the
so
threes
easy
he was
for him.
making, he was coming off like a pin down and stuff like that. Like he was making shots out of sets, and he took a lot of free throws. By the way, that's the other thing.
Yeah,
too.
they fouled the shit out of him.
He shot a bunch of free throws. It wasn't like anything where he made a few tough shots here and there. And also, fun fact about that game, Jalen Rose gets roasted for that game, but Mo Peterson actually got.
Mo Peterson was the one.
He got the majority of the buckets, right? But he hit some tough shots here and there. But yeah, it just seemed like standard stuff he would always shoot, and he was just on fire that night. And I didn't watch that game. I remember I was in middle school when this happened. I didn't watch that game. I watched it on SportsCenter. And then the next day, or I watched the highlights on SportsCenter, and then the next day at school, everybody was talking about it. Like everybody, like kids who don't watch basketball, kids who were Laker fans who had Kobe jerseys on, like they were talking about it. They were just like, "Did you hear he scored 81?" Everybody's just like, "What?" And he's one of the greatest. I have him in my top 8 of all time. He is, just like I said, I was an avid Laker hater growing up. I grew up in Bakersfield, which is like an hour away from LA, so it was a lot of Laker fans. Weirdly, a solid amount of Kings fans too, but that's neither here nor there.
You're in a weird middle ground there.
Yeah, sort of. The valley right there. So, I grew up like at high school, like me and my friend George, he's a Suns fan, and a lot of his friends are Laker fans. So we'd be arguing at the lunch table every day, just me and George, and with like 3 or 4 Laker fans, just talking shit pretty much. And, me arguing, like, even though I knew the argument was completely wrong, but, I'm caping for my boy Allen Iverson. I was like, Allen Iverson's better than Kobe. And it was at that point where Kobe didn't win a 4 or 5 at that point. It was before the Powell trade. I was just like, yeah, Kobe couldn't win those without Shaq, and Allen Iverson's the better scorer. Like, we'd have arguments like that all the time. And I knew I was wrong on like 95% of them, but I still wanted to argue because I didn't like the Lakers, and I wanted to argue against Kobe, but I knew Kobe was fucking great, and he was awesome to watch. And damn it, if there weren't some games where Kobe would do a move and I would immediately go in my backyard on the half court and I would try
to do it, right?
Try to do it and fail, like I still can't believe like he's gone, and I was really looking forward to his post basketball career. Like, yeah, even though like it became a meme and stuff like that when he first started releasing content and stuff like that, and it wasn't good. I was like, okay, he's just starting. And also Kobe's we have read, me and you have probably read a lot of the same Kobe stuff about like his mindset, his mentality, how he approaches not just his life on the court but off the court. And it's really the same damn mindset. It's like literally that Mamba mentality of like, I'm focusing on this. I'm going to study and pour in all my resources into this. I want to start a media company and I want to start a media company and affect sports and athletes and try to help them. And he was well on his way to doing that. And I had no doubt he was going to find his niche and be great at that. Like he found his niche. Well, not his niche, but he dedicated himself to being great at basketball. I have no doubt he was going to have a great post career as well, and it started to bloom that way.
Yeah, and like detail is the perfect show for me and you.
Yeah,
for, like,
I love the detail clips. Like when he was doing like Jason Tatum, breaking down Jason Tatum and stuff like that. It's like. Yeah, okay, say what you want about like Mamba mentality and all this stuff, whether that's actually like the mindset, the whole ethos or the myth around it is whatever you feel about it, like going inside that dude's brain and hearing him talk about basketball is a fucking treat. And detail was awesome. Like you get to hear his mindset about stuff, and that was just it was the content post career was going to be great, and I had no doubt he was going to be great at whatever he set his mind to.
Yeah. The thing too that again, if there is a bright side, I love all of the Kobe stories that are coming out.
Yep.
About like just the way that he carried himself and the way that he does things. I mean, like obviously everyone's seen the Iman Shumpert story. That's sort of like a well-known one that happened since Kobe passed.
Mm-hmm.
That's come out. The Smush Parker one. Was it Smush Parker? No, it was Lou Williams. Lou Williams one where he told everyone to take off their shoes.
Yeah, after a blowout loss, Kobe walked into the locker room. He's like, "Take my shoes off. You don't deserve to wear that shit." Pretty much.
Yeah, he made the entire locker room take off. Whoever was wearing Kobe's, take them off.
That's some gangsta shit, by the way, too. Like,
it is.
If you're at that level now, where your whole team is wearing your shoes, and you could just walk in and be like, "Take that shit off. You don't deserve it."
It's so good. Have you heard the D Wade story from the Olympics?
Yeah, where it was the one where D Wade left that night, right? And he was like, "I'll see you tomorrow." And he shows up the next day, and he was like, "When did you go home?" And Kobe was like, "I didn't." Is that one right?
No, dude, this is even better. So they got there to the gym, they go work out, and they go the whole team goes to work out after they land. They're shooting around, whatever, and they go to bed. And D-Wade tells Braun and Carmelo, "Hey, if like whoever wakes up first, call the other ones, and we'll all go down, get breakfast, and go down work out again. Like, you know, we'll come with you. Just whoever gets up first, call." And so he said he couldn't sleep, so he gets up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, calls LeBron, calls Carmelo, and they go down for breakfast. And Kobe's already sitting there eating breakfast with ice on his knees. And they go, "What's up?" And he goes, "Oh, I just finished a workout, and I'm about to go do another one after this. You guys want to come with me?"
That's yeah. The work ethic for Kobe is just it's fucking legendary. Like
it really is.
It's like all the stories you hear about it is, and it's not one of those things where you can kind of smell bullshit from it. It's legit. Like.
Yeah, well, because everyone has the same story. Like,
everyone has the same story. Everyone has the same damn story. And I hate to do I think Bill Simmons, when he comes up with a lot of theories, I think like 90% of them are horseshit. But there is something. I remember him saying something, and he's always made this point. But like in the '08 Olympics, like LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Dwight, like. All those guys, they came in the next year into that NBA season better. And the reason why was everybody looked at Kobe as the leader of that Olympic team, and they followed his lead. They learned stuff from him. They learned how hard to work, like with the Dwayne Wade story you were talking about. J. Kidd, too. Chris Paul as well. Chris Bosh. Like, they learned stuff from Kobe, not necessarily skill-wise, but how to work, how efficient to work, when you should work, all that stuff. Learned a lot of stuff of just work ethic wise. I imagine they gained a lot off of that alone. And they came in the next season. LeBron, 2008-9? He had one of the most ridiculous seasons of his career. Dwayne Wade, I think, got hurt that year with the shoulder injury. No, he just came back. He had just came back and had a great Olympics and had a great year that year as well. Dwight Howard was really starting to find his stride, was already the best big in the league at that point, but was solidifying himself as a top player overall. And
they made the finals the next year.
Yeah, went to the finals the next year. And Kobe had an influence on everybody. And like seeing guys like Paul George and Devin Booker that day when they were crying, and you know, the Suns and the Grizzlies I think played that day too, and they did the we're going to hold the ball for 24 seconds, hold the ball for 8 seconds. The rituals they were doing while the Suns were holding the ball for 24 seconds. I remember Devin Booker, who idolizes Kobe, and you've seen a lot of Kobe games. There's a lot of shit Devin Booker does that you could tell like he practiced Kobe moves in the backyard growing up, right? Yeah. And he was just
good or bad. He does them.
Good or bad, but he was standing there and he was like, his eyes were welling up, and it hurt. It hurt. That was the other thing too. It hurt to see people who idolize this guy, people who watch this guy, because a lot of these players are our age now, and so they're say. I know that hurts to say, but they grew up. They grew up watching the same players we did, and that's why I guess I felt hurt for them too. Is like I kind of knew what they were going through. Like you can never relate to a professional athlete, right? But in that moment, you can kind of relate to why they were feeling that way. And Kobe had his, like I said many times already, Kobe had his major influence on this game, and a game that I love watching. A player that I love watching was unexpectedly ripped away from us, and it still to this day, like it's still hard to process.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago, about how the NBA's been so good about, like, he's really the first legend to die.
Well, David Stern died a few weeks before that too.
I mean, in terms of like players and iconic players, like dude, Bill Russell's still alive.
Yeah,
like you know what I mean.
He's still alive, flipping off Shaq at the MVP awards and saying, "I'll kick all your ass."
Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like we still have, when you talk about like guys that built the game, right? Like Wilt's gone, but we still have Bill Russell. We still have like Dr. J.
Dude,
Magic,
in 1992, people thought Magic was gonna die soon. Like, HIV at that time was considered a death sentence, and Magic's still here.
Like, look at all of the NBA like pillars and the icons, like we brought up before, of like these guys built our game. They're still very active figures in the NBA. They're still you still see them everywhere.
You still see them. You still see quotables, all that.
They're still doing stuff, and like for Kobe to be gone now, it's just a very sad thing. Like I would have loved to eventually get a Last Dance style documentary on the Shaq Kobe Lakers.
And that was the other thing too. Kobe the first few years after he retired, he did not give a fuck about the NBA or basketball. He wanted to focus on his own thing. But when his daughter Gianna started playing a lot and he was coaching her, you saw him starting to go to games with her. You saw him introduce his daughter to Trae Young and Gianna to Trae Young and Luka Doncic, and he started showing up more and going to games. Because remember, I think it was the year after he retired. The only time he showed up for a game was for his double jersey retirement, which, by the way, side note, legendary double jersey retirement. But even then, he only stayed for the first half. And the Lakers are getting blown out that day. And I think there's a GIF or a clip of it, but like I think it was after somebody airballed or missed a shot. The camera just somehow happened to pan over to Kobe, like ushering like his kids out of the stadium, like, all right, it's time to go. And I think the Lakers are getting blown out that night, so I think Kobe wanted to take an early night off, but he was just starting to get back into basketball, where he was doing detail and all that stuff. And I had a feeling that was I'm sure when he first retired, he wasn't thinking his post-career content was going to be about basketball. I think he said himself he wanted to kind of separate himself from that. But when his kids started getting into it, I don't have kids, but I imagine you would know. But like when kids get into stuff or have an interest in stuff, as a parent, you want to facilitate that as to the best of your abilities. And Kobe started getting back into the sport that we all love and that he loved for a long time. He still loved it, but he got back into it because of his daughter. And that was the other shame of it too. It was just, there was so much ahead, you know? Yeah.
I think that's kind of the saddest part. Do you have anything else you want to bring up about Kobe before we get into like my Ben Simmons questions?
Other than the fact that Kobe was a legend, and even though I still root against the Lakers, Kobe was still one of my favorite players to watch, and I still watch highlights of him, and there's just nothing more that I have to say about than other than he's an iconic legend, and it just sucks, you know. That's all I have to say, really. Yeah,
I echo every sentiment. It's a sad thing, and it's still hard to process. I still haven't really come to terms with it, but
yeah. You know. But hit me with your Ben Simmons questions. I think I'm ready.
Okay.
To answer this to the best of my ability.
So again, I don't watch too many Sixers games. I've watched quite a bit just as an NBA kind of geek. I've watched quite a bit of them. But we keep expecting Ben Simmons to like take this jump and this leap. Has he gotten better at all in the last like 3 years?
So I mentioned this before, but I did a podcast on my solo podcast, the Sly Hooper podcast, the day after the James Harden trade. And, I talked about all the teams who won that trade, and then I talked about the Sixers, who were presumably the favorites to land James Harden. And basically what I said, it's turned into a thing about Ben, because Ben was the one guy who was seen as the trump card asset in a Harden trade. I said it before. He has basically, on offense at least, he has been mostly the same player since his rookie year. And I want to say there have been tiny micro improvements, but if you are expecting Ben Simmons, but that's not what you want if you're expecting Ben Simmons to be, quote unquote, the lead ball handler star on a team. Now, but if you're just looking for improvements on, it's not just, see, Chris, it's not just the jump shot with me. The jump shot thing I think is overblown. I acknowledge he needs a jump shot. I just want to be clear, like that, and I don't want to brush that aside, because it's basically saying like, oh, you don't really need legs to walk, right? Like this that obvious. Like Ben Simmons needed to shoot, but there were ways to me that I saw how he could mitigate it. Like, it's not just year 5 of me hoping that Ben Simmons looks at the rim to shoot, let alone attempt one, let alone make one. It's also year 5 of me hoping Ben Simmons is a better finisher with his left hand. I think his touch is actually horrendous around the basket. His right hand, he's better with it, has better touch with it, but it's still, he has to do weird flip shots and stuff like that. He never uses his left. He still doesn't. He's still, for the most part, a subpar free throw shooter. There was like a month last year before his initial back injury where there was like a month and a half where he was averaging like 22, 7, and 8, and he was getting to the free throw line at an insane rate. And he was making a good amount of his free throws, and I'm like, that's the Ben Simmons that I want to see. And it just hasn't happened consistently for me. Now, I want to say I still want to say he is a star player. He's not a superstar player, and I think some of his offensive struggles this year is not what he actually is. I think he could be better, but I think I'm at the point now where we have to start I'm at the point now where I'm not so sure the ceiling's there for him to improve as a half-court ball handler in the half-court. Teams don't guard him. They don't even look at him when he's at the three-point line. And going back to the jump shot thing, you could tell it's a mental thing, because like if he wanted to shoot, he could just shoot. The star players can have the mindset of scoring or doing whatever with the ball whenever they want to, right? And like even LeBron, when he wasn't a good shooter early in his career, he still took shots. Like, I just wish Simmons would just not care about that and would just let it fly sometimes, even if it's a bad shot. But also, I acknowledge he's probably never going to be a passable shooter, because he still shoots with the wrong hand. And I don't mean to be Kevin O'Connor here, but he still shoots with the wrong hand. He practices it all the time and doesn't attempt it in games still in year 5, which is infuriating to me. And I can't help but wonder when I see James Harden dropping 30-point triple-doubles, fat as hell, even after a trade on a new team, I can't help but look at that every time. I'm just like, damn, did we miss a chance? Because who knows if Ben Simmons will prove me wrong. If he stays this way, that's a top 15 to 20 player. But the problem is he can't be your second best guy on a championship team because we don't have a half-court perimeter scorer. And that's always going to be the issue now with this team. Because now it seems like we're going to keep him for the long haul, which good. I'm all for keeping good basketball players. But what's the ceiling on this team in the playoffs? Especially, what if Joel Embiid has another nick or an injury right before the playoffs? You can't rely on Ben Simmons to create in the half court. I wish there were just some things about his offensive mindset that I wish would change. And it's not just shooting. It's going downhill consistently. It's going downhill to the rim, not to kick out 100% of the damn time. Go up and attack. Use your body. I know you have terrible touch around the basket, but get some contact. You're a big dude. You're faster than people. You have a really good handle for your size. Get downhill. It's just, he's such a unique and weird player that like you have to fit certain players around him. And the fact that he hasn't been willing to improve his offensive game, like in very noticeable and tangible ways, it's frustrating. And I have defended Simmons a lot. I think he is a really good player, but that doesn't mean he's absolved from criticism. And I have to sit here and wonder, maybe his ceiling isn't just as high as I thought it would be. He's made strides on the defensive end. LSU, he did not care. It's college. I don't blame him. Rookie year, he was better than I thought. Second year, he was still the same. Third year, last year, he took the leap as a first-team All-NBA, possibly Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And that in itself is very special and valuable. But with the way this team is constructed right now and what we need from Ben Simmons, he just hasn't been that. And if it was like something where it was like Brad Beal, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons, that's a big three I could roll with. I think Simmons as a third guy or a 2B option is fucking great if you're a contender or a finals contender. But in the role he is in right now, that the Sixers have a ceiling as a playoff team. And so I guess that's my long-winded piece on it, but it's definitely been frustrating for sure. But I'm interested. What are your observations on Ben Simmons and his ceiling later down the line?
So like that's sort of where you're pretty much echoing everything that I thought. The thing is with me is like after watching Ben Simmons' rookie year, I go, oh my God, this guy, the ceiling is. I liked him at LSU.
The ceiling is a roof, as Michael Jordan.
I was like, holy shit! Because when you watch him at LSU, even at LSU, you can see the size, the vision,
the passing, all that.
The aggression that he had. He went to the basket with like authority.
Oh shit! He's taking a three right now and missed it badly. Sorry, that's breaking news. I have the game on my smart TV right now, just on mute, and we're getting blown out. But Simmons just took a corner three and missed it badly.
Yeah. So like to me, it reminded me so much watching him at LSU and watching his rookie year. It reminded me so much of like UCLA Lonzo, where you watch him and you go, "Holy shit, dude! If this can translate, he's going to be a monster." And you watch him, and then you watch Ben in his rookie year, and you go, "Oh my God, it's working! He's getting to the basket whenever he wants. Oh my God, he's passing, he's playmaking at an elite level. Oh my God!" And you're like, if he just has a little bit of a jumper and can play defense, incredible. And then every year goes by and you go, okay, there's no jumper. That's okay. He's still doing the things that he was good at. Like he's still
young. He's 22. Yeah. At the second year, he's 22.
He's still attacking the basket. He's still making plays. And then you go, oh, he's attacking the basket less. Oh, he's standing around now. Oh, he's now just kind of passing to the open man. He's not like creating. He's just kind of passing around, and you're like he's not doing anything. And I'm like, I just watch him in the half court, and I'm like, I'm so confused as to what his purpose is in the half court, because he's not cutting, he's not going to the basket, he's not like driving to the basket and like getting contact or like collapsing the defense.
It's amazing for all the shit Brett Brown got as a coach, and I defended Brett Brown every step of the way. I think he is a good coach, elite coach. Okay, fine. He's not that. He's probably somewhere in the top 12 to 13. But in the half court, at least Ben Simmons would do stuff, and I've seen much of the same stuff, or not same stuff, but I'm seeing less of that here with Doc Rivers, and maybe they're still adjusting. Simmons has been playing better recently, but like. Yeah, in the half court, like Simmons would screen, he would cut, he would do stuff. Sixers didn't run much pick and roll, but like Brett started incorporating that more towards the end of last year. Like Simmons was doing more stuff in the half court, and I think it's a combination of defenses figuring out his tendencies now, and he's like you said, like his playmaking is still great, but now he's passing it a lot. Like it's sort of like in a hot potato way, like yeah. Like kind of like what Lonzo did when his three wasn't falling and kind of isn't now this season, unfortunately. We're going to have to talk about that at some point. Like, Lonzo is, the Pelicans and Lonzo, like, I'm kind of, got my eye on them. But like you said, like, in the half court, Ben Simmons has been largely ineffective. And there's stuff that works. There's stuff that works, but you can't run it consistently because defenses will see it coming because you can defend that stuff. Like, if I see one more Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons snug pick and roll on the left block towards the basket, I'm going to lose my fucking mind because it never works. It never works. You can't, like, who runs a snug pick and roll with the NBA point guard? No one, especially 5 feet from the basket. It never works. And it's because Simmons doesn't, I don't know what it is from like practice to the game, but like, cause Ben Simmons clearly practices this stuff. He works on his game. Like, there is a lot of firsthand accounts, source, all that stuff. Like, he works on his game, but for some reason it's between the ears. When he gets on the court, he plays the same way. And it's really bizarre. Like, you have to like, be like, attack the basket. And there are games where he'll do it for a stretch and then not do it again. Or he'll take 1 3 and be like, all right, I took my 3. Can everybody shut the fuck up about it now? And he won't take another one for 2 months. It's that type of stuff.
And like, it just feels like every time I watch him, I walk away from the game lower on Ben Simmons than I was when I first sat down.
Yeah, it's the ceiling thing.
Yeah, and I go, man, he, like, if he doesn't get any better, he's, like you said, he's still a great player, but he's not like the potential Hall of Famer, like, superstar guy that I thought he could have been.
Yeah.
Like,
I got Sixer fans so excited. Like, a ball handling 6'10" guy. Yeah.
He reminds, it's just the kind of thing of like wasted potential where I'm like, man, I see so much more in you.
Yeah, like, there's no, like, I've always said, like, the comparison to Giannis and Ben is always dumb, because one, just off finishing around the rim alone, Giannis is historically great, and can finish, and it can actually use both hands around the rim, so that comparison just stops right there. But in terms of passing and handle, like, there's some Giannis facsimile stuff that Ben Simmons can do, like, as terms of just being a big terror in transition and, you know, being a more naturally gifted passer and ball handler. Where, like you said, you see this and you're just like, wow, this guy has, if he could just work on some other parts of his game to help raise the floor of what he's already good at, like, this dude is going to be on track for, like, a Hall of Fame career. And look, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, so, like, he could definitely do the Andre Iguodala or something like that, right? But we're talking about, like, when me and you are talking about Hall of Fame, we're talking about, like, all-time greats, you know?
Yeah. And again, like, we're putting him in, like, rarefied air, but I think he has that talent. And the thing, again, where I watch him, I go, man, I don't know what it is with him where I go, I just don't see it in him as like I did before. Like, all of my excitement and all of, like, the possibilities when you watch him and you're like, oh my god, the possibilities are endless. And then the more you watch him, you just go like, yeah, no. It's like how I feel about Giannis this year too. I feel like Giannis, every year I watch Giannis, I go, okay, well, he still hasn't learned how to do anything really.
Yeah.
He's just being athletic and, like, being like, high energy athletic guy.
They're using, and then, like, the coaching staff, I think, is using him around the rim more and stuff. So it's like not even, it's the coaches putting him in more different spots too, and stuff like that.
Like, I don't feel like Giannis has grown as a basketball player. I just feel like he's just doing stuff. And, like, other people have echoed this too. I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this, but, like, I don't think Giannis is a skilled basketball player.
Yeah, like, we've talked about that. Yeah.
I just think he is obviously a physical and athletic freak of nature, but I don't think he's necessarily, like, I wouldn't pick him as, like, if we had this talk last week with the skilled basketball player thing, but, like, if you took every NBA player and you put them in the same body and gave them the same tools and was just like, cool, using your basketball skill and intelligence, play 5-on-5. I think Giannis is one of the worst players on the court at that point.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, he's like an average passer, not a great one. I've always thought his passing was a little bit overrated because he
collapses the defense.
He collapses the defense. It's like it's the Russell Westbrook thing. People will always say, "Oh, you say Westbrook is a ball hog, but look, he averages 12 assists a game." And I'm like, yeah, he gets most of those assists. Like, Westbrook's a good passer, but he gets most of those assists because he is literally collapsing the paint with like 4 dudes trying to stop him, and the threes are easy. Like, that just is what it is. And Giannis has been deteriorating from the free throw line. Defenses still don't give a shit if he shoots threes. Like, I don't care if Giannis becomes like a 37% 3-point shooter. I don't think defenses will give that up every time, especially in the playoffs. I think defensively, he's very intelligent and deserving of Defensive Player of the Year last year. But as far as skill-wise, yeah, he's not in the upper echelon of skill, especially relative to star players. And that's where, but even then, like, going back to Ben Simmons, like, there are things that, like, he has very discernible skills, you know, and if he worked on other parts of that, or maybe, you know, or maybe just space jammed Giannis's ability to finish with his left hand around the basket, like, he'd be such a better player. Like, Ben Simmons, to me, the three-pointer, the jump shot wouldn't bother me so much if he would just get to the line more. That's the thing. His free throw rate is so low for a player of his size. Like, that shouldn't happen, you know? And I shouldn't have to be excited about, oh, look at this 2-month stretch where Ben is dominating, you know, like, from the free throw line. Like, there's just stuff that is, like, low-hanging fruit stuff that you can clearly see Ben needs to work on. And it's been anywhere from non-existent to micro. And that part's frustrating for sure.
Yeah, totally agree. I just wanted to bring it up because I was watching, I forget what game I was watching, but I was watching and I was just like, man, I don't know what his purpose is if he's not in transition. I don't know what he's doing because it just looks so stagnant. It looks like they're playing 4-on-5 in the half court.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. And I was like, I'm not even a Sixers fan, and this is frustrating to watch. I can't even imagine.
Trust me. Dude, trust me. Like, especially now that the Harden trade is done and finished, whenever Ben has a bad game, Sixers Twitter is gonna go off. Like, Philly fans in general are ruthless. Sixer fans are ruthless, but Ben's been getting it this year. And now that the Harden trade's fallen through, or now that the Harden trade's done, he's been playing better. So they haven't been on his case as much. But the first time Ben Simmons has a bad game, and it might be tonight, honestly, especially now that Embiid's not playing tonight, they're going to rip him to shreds. And that, you know, that the frustration is palpable.
Yeah. I can only imagine after watching him myself, and I can only imagine if I was a big time Sixers fan how I'd feel. But
if your best player is gone and you're the second star on the team, right? I shouldn't have to just automatically chalk that up as a loss, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if that was Harden, and not even Harden, if that was like Bradley Beal, like, at least we'd have a fighting chance. Like, you have to construct specifically around Simmons and his skills, but also his flaws. And when Embiid's gone, like, the second star is supposed to be, he's supposed to be the guy's like, all right, don't worry. You can have comfort in knowing, the fan base can have comfort in knowing that we have a shot tonight. And it's the fucking Pistons.
Yeah.
And we're getting destroyed. And it's like, that's that type of stuff. And, you know, then Ben will have a great game or like a stretch, and you're just like, can you please do this more? Like, he's had good playoff games too. He just doesn't. Yeah, I've went on long enough. Like, you get my frustrations with that.
I opened up Pandora's box on that one, but yeah, no, I totally see where you're coming from, and I understand the frustration.
All Lakers, all Sixers episode. How about that?
Well, speaking of Lakers look so good when they're not bored.
Yeah, it's kind of like I've started watching other teams in the last week or so. I haven't been watching the Lakers as much as I was the first few weeks of the season, but or basically the first month of this season, or the first 2 weeks. But I mean, in a way too, like I'm kind of watching other teams, knowing that this team is by far they're still the favorite. The Clippers, I think, still need a point guard to set the table up. I know Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are averaging career highs in assists or assist to turnover ratio, whatever it was, but I still think you need a point guard right there. Actually, I think Lonzo would be perfect for the Clippers.
I was going to bring that up. I think Lonzo to the Clippers, and the Clippers send over like a 3-point shooter.
Yep.
Would be a fantastic trade.
I was starting to write up a script today, but I want to do a video on the Pelicans because it seems like my concerns about the Pelicans are coming to fruition, but also more concerns have popped up. Like, I'm not sure if David Griffin and Stan Van Gundy are good, especially the offseason Griffin had. I've always thought David Griffin was overrated. I never thought he was a bad GM or anything like that, but I always thought he was overrated in how the media talked about him and praised him like he was one of the top execs in the league. I'm just like, no. Like, Masai Ujiri, Danny Ainge, Daryl Morey. Like, do I need to go on any further?
I think he's on the higher end because there's like a threshold where like you're either good or you're terrible.
Yeah.
There's no.
Of course. I'm not saying he's a bad GM, but I had already talked to you about like the off-season moves that he did that I kind of questioned, but also Stan Van Gundy. He tried the offensive or the defensive philosophy of the Bucks because you hear Jeff and Stan talk about the Bucks defense all the time about how they just pack the paint at a historic level and just allow a wide open amount of threes. Well, that's not working, and so they're kind of going back to defending the 3-point line more, and they once again have one of the worst defenses in the NBA, but they have one of the worst offenses in the NBA, and they are slow. And they are 25th in pace. Like, this team from one season to the next is completely different and stunting the growth of the youth on the Pelicans. Kira Lewis isn't playing as much as I think he should, and now that Brandon Ingram has seemingly taken another leap, like at this point, I would do everything I can to facilitate the growth of Zion and Brandon Ingram. And I don't, as much as I like Steven Adams as a player, I questioned that fit when the signing happened, and I still don't like it. Their offensive rebounding rate is insane, but it doesn't mean anything if they can't score, and also they still can't defend. And it's kind of wild.
I think it comes down to a thing. I like the Steven Adams signing. I like the way it fits so far. I don't think the issue with Steven Adams is Steven Adams. I think it's the pace that they play at. I think the problem that they're running into is like they wait for him on offense to play half court, and it's like, why?
And there's not enough shooting too.
And run. Like it hinders Zion's game and it hinders Lonzo's game. Like I think Lonzo Ball would not be struggling the way he is right now if they played faster.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a part of it. And I think that's part of the reason why I didn't like the Adams signing was because it was like, okay, what pace are they going to play at? And I think with young players in pace, that's kind of the few things that'll help facilitate growth easier because there's more possessions and you just getting more athletes running up and down the court is a good thing because then you'll get chaos possessions, scramble possessions where you get open shots. And I definitely think Lonzo would be better. I am starting to get scared for Lonzo though because I know it's only been 12 out of 15 games so far, but he is struggling again. And that was the other thing I was going to mention too.
He's like an infamous slow starter though. Like he always ramps up as the season goes. But the thing is, like, I also think that Eric Bledsoe is hurting their offense.
That was what I was going to say. The lack of shooting with Eric Bledsoe, who, by the way, Eric Bledsoe isn't playing great defense either, by the way. The whole team isn't. But Eric Bledsoe has stunk up the joint. And,
like, the thing is, okay, just for theory's sake, if you took Eric Bledsoe out and you put in like a Tyrese Halliburton or like just a connective piece, that
Drew
team,
Holiday.
yeah, Drew Holiday, that team immediately gets like a million times better.
Yep.
Because the thing that the Pelicans were so good at last year was that they had so much playmaking and ball movement with Lonzo and Ingram and Zion, where all of them can playmake and dribble to a certain extent and get to a spot and create shots for other people and create. Where then now when you have a ball stopper, full caps in Eric Bledsoe, it stagnates their entire offense.
Yep.
Because you can see when he makes a move, there's space to like dish and create and do other things. He just forces it to the basket or forces something like that. Like you don't get these nice sequences of offense.
And it's nice to give the ball to Brandon Ingram a lot during the game, but it doesn't mean shit if there's nobody that could space the floor properly. Like there are games this year where Ingram is literally running into like 3 people in the paint because they don't respect Bledsoe. They don't respect Lonzo as a shooter. Zion doesn't attempt threes. Adams doesn't attempt threes either. Like the starting lineup last year just had so much better shooting, and Derek Favors is a better player in space than Adams is. Not necessarily, a lockdown bruiser or occupier in the paint, but Favors could at least, be more agile and pick and roll and could shoot the mid-range a little bit. So he's a better space player than Adams, and I think the spacing is just the main thing for me. And for young franchises that have a bunch of assets and young players and stuff, to me, the Pelicans have found their 2 guys, right? They have found Brandon Ingram is clearly just going to keep getting better. I would bank all my money on Brandon Ingram. The extension was the right move to do. All that. Yep. Zion Williamson, we all know how special he can be, health permitting. Please God, let him be healthy. If I were the Pelicans at this point, I would just start building around those 2 and facilitating them with the right proper players around him. Because, honestly,
too, looking at it, if JJ Redick wasn't struggling as much as he is, I don't think he'll continue to struggle. I think he'll get better.
Yeah, no, he's a historically great shooter. He'll be fine.
Right. So, like, honestly, I think if he started and played more minutes, if you gave him Eric Bledsoe's minutes, I think they're a better team.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that.
And I don't know why they haven't made that switch already. It's pretty clear that's like they look so much better. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but they look so much better when Redick's on the floor.
Well, I went back and listened to our Western Conference prediction podcast, and I said that if I were the Pelicans, I would be looking to flip Eric Bledsoe right now before the season starts, and it's getting harder and harder to flip him. or the price is definitely going up now to get offload off of him.
Well, someone brought up the point, and I love this trade, is the Pelicans going all in for Beal.
That would be incredible.
Like get rid of Bledsoe for the salary stuff, and then just all the picks you got from the Lakers and every pick you got, give it to the Wizards for Beal.
Speaking of the Wizards, I'm ready to do. You know how Bill Simmons and Cousin Sal, when they do their podcast, they do the cross-off lists for NFL teams. I'm ready to cross the Wizards off. I know it's early in the year, but I'm sick of this team. I am I'm sick of them not playing defense. I'm sick of Russell Westbrook playing the worst basketball of his career. And yes, I know he's missed some games. I am tired of watching Bradley Beal score an efficient 50 or 60 points, by the way, efficient, and still losing. Yeah. I'm tired of all of it. And I never thought Scotty Brooks was an elite coach or a good coach. I think he's adequate, but he's been bad. The whole team is just bad. They score a lot and then they give up a lot and they lose. And Westbrook and Beal should be in the midst of the playoff seeds in the East right now. There is no excuse. Just simply a simple statement, just looking at it that way. Beal and Westbrook should be a playoff team in the East. And they suck.
Yeah, it's I will say that they are fun to watch on offense. Like when they get
Oh,
going,
yeah.
they're really fun to watch because I love how
I
Avdia
love
fits
Bradley Beal
in.
too.
I love now that they have Rui back. Rui gives them a really fun dimension and in
Mhm.
transition and sort of like an inside presence and I just love Rui. I love watching Rui play.
Yeah, we've talked about him. I like him too. Yeah.
So like I like watching them. But man, they're one of those teams where you watch them and if you didn't look at the score, you're like, oh, this game's pretty close. And then you go, oh no, they're getting blown out.
Yep.
You're like, what happened?
or they're like they're in some close match with an equally bad team, and you're just like, what is going on here? You know? And it's like they just don't guard anybody. And now that Thomas Bryant is gone for the year with an ACL, and not that he was a great defender, but he was at least an athletic big that could alter some stuff at the rim. He's gone now, so now it's Mo Wagner pretty much, and
South Bay Lakers.
Yep, there's a lot of we talked about this before. There's a lot of South Bay Lakers on the Wizards, but they are bad, man. And but at least they'll be in the Cade Cunningham sweepstakes. That'll probably make it easier to trade Beal in the offseason too.
Yo, I will say, if you had a young core of Denny, Rui, and Cade, that's a fun young core.
Oh yeah, well, just Cade alone makes that group a lot more fun. But yeah, like not just Rui and Denny, but Troy Brown too. Like like I am I've always been a Westbrook centrist. Ever since he came into the league, I love watching him play, obviously, but like in terms of like the discourse and rating how good he is as a player compared to the other superstars in the league and stuff, I never quite got that far. There were probably a few years in his career where he could have been that guy, but like that's gone now. And it's just now that he's older, the fact that he's always been not a good defender is accentuated. And yes, he has always been overrated on that end of the floor. I would get in so many arguments with people about it. Like, yeah, but now that he's older, like nobody on that team can guard, and that's just that's probably why I don't have as much fun watching this team. They're fun to watch on offense, but watching them just get layup after layup. It was Pelicans like in the bubble. I was getting pissed watching the Pelicans in the bubble. It was like, okay, this is a layup line now. But what were you going to say about the Wizards?
I forgot what I was going to say with the Wizards. The thing with Westbrook.
Oh yeah, Westbrook.
I always say Westbrook is one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA, but I would never want him on my team.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's like my thing with Westbrook of like, and it comes down to a pure fact here of when he played in OKC, there's no reason whatsoever that he should have more shot attempts than Kevin Durant in any context.
No, in any scenario ever. Like in some of those playoff games, he would take like 30 shots, and Kevin Durant would have like 19 or 20. And I'm just like, are you shitting me right now? This is arguably one of the, if not the greatest scorer in NBA history. And you're sitting here jacking up. I remember there was one playoff series against Memphis, one of the 500 times the Thunder and the Grizzlies played in the playoffs. And it was a road game. It was game 4. I think it was the double overtime game in 2014. And Westbrook took a shot at the end of regulation. It was a contested shot. Durant was open. He wanted the ball. And Westbrook took the hero shot, missed it, going to overtime. And I remember TNT came back to the game, and it showed Kevin Durant talking with, I think, Mo Cheeks. It was one of the assistant coaches. And you can hear Kevin Durant kind of mouth like, I wanted the ball. Like, what the hell? And I wouldn't want Westbrook on my team. Like, if I were to build a team, like, to me, like, at his peak, I'm sure Russell Westbrook would lead 50-win teams to the playoffs, but I know my ceiling is going to be limited with that, you know?
Yeah. And again, it goes to the thing of, I love watching him play. I love him as a person and like the way he approaches the game and like his mindset and his attitude and like how hard he plays. Everyone talks about how hard he plays.
Kobe loves Westbrook, by the way.
Like I love him as a player and a person. But man, he is the most frustrating person to have when you're trying to win games.
Yep.
And it's so irritating to watch. I remember last year during the playoffs when Lakers playing the Rockets, the Lakers just let him shoot. And it was so funny. I remember I took a screenshot of it and I tweeted it out and I said, hey, are you watching the Lakers Rockets game right now? Because chances are you're the closest defender to Russell Westbrook right now. Because they just let him wide shoot.
Open. And the crazy thing is, like, whenever Westbrook loses in the playoffs, it's like always the most passive aggressive, like, or like ugly exits, right? Like when he won MVP on the triple-double year, the Rockets bounced him in the first round, and Pat Bev was just like, talking his shit when he was on the Rockets, and Westbrook was just looking at him like, look at the score, I have 40, and the Pat's like, yeah, but we're fucking winning. Like, what?
Now, then I hate Pat Bev too. I think Pat Bev's full of shit. But also,
I'm just saying,
right.
He was right. But then last year, when the Lakers were about to bounce the Rockets in Game 5 and it was a blowout, and Rondo was doing his Rondo shit where he was pestering Westbrook on the block, and then Westbrook was like, you're going to need a double, and Rondo's like, no, don't double, I got him. And then Westbrook was like, you guys need to double me, and they were like down 40 at that point. And I remember LeBron, who was also in the game, he was just hearing the conversation, and he just started laughing. He's like, yeah, whatever, we're moving on. It was so funny. LeBron's listening to Westbrook and Rondo like argue, and Westbrook's like, you still need to double me, and LeBron's just like, oh, okay, whatever, dude. Like it was just funny. But Westbrook is absolutely frustrating. And then, this is obviously just a me thing, but like I swear I've gotten into like 10 arguments, especially when I lived up in Humboldt where I went to college, where I am somehow I'm in the wrong for saying that Stephen Curry is a better player, period, than Russell Westbrook. And it's like, dude, you can't just get enamored by, Westbrook, gambling in a passing lane and stealing it and fast break open dunk and he's pounding his chest afterwards, right? You can't get coaxed by that so much. It's like Westbrook's a terrible defender. He's he was a great player. I will acknowledge that, but how great relative to his peers? No, I'm sorry. Like he was never like even in his MVP year, I was like Harden and Kawhi. And, I eventually put Westbrook second towards the end because it wasn't the triple doubles. It was like the 3-week stretch where he put the team on his back. It was the Kobe stuff before he tore his Achilles. Like he put the team on his back and was hitting buzzer beater after buzzer beater, right? But Harden and Kawhi, it should have been one of those two, right? Like it's just Westbrook's a polarizing player too, and that's, I guess, with those type of players, it just is what it is. But we have to acknowledge the reality, like especially now.
I think I would give Westbrook that MVP just because of the historic averaging a triple double over the course of a season is insane. But
it is insane, but I wouldn't give him the award just for that. I
mean, I understand. I can make the case either way. I mean, the thing is, I tend to agree that Harden probably should have won that award, but I'm not mad at anyone for voting for Westbrook because of the historic nature of the year that he had. Like it's something where I'm like, okay, I can understand the precedent, right? Where it's like some years, and Shaq brings it up all the time. The Steve Nash years are really hard to argue when you look at like other numbers that people were putting up, and you're like, how did he win those? Like you could make an argument for Kobe, Shaq, or Duncan in those years that Nash won his MVP. Even I think Dirk.
I think one of the, I'm not sure. I keep forgetting which Nash, the first or the second, but I think Nash deserved one of those MVPs. I think Shaq over exaggerates, like with everything he does.
One of them was Kobe's. One of those MVPs should have been Kobe's, because that was the year he led the league in scoring and scored like 36 points on like high efficiency and was carrying the Lakers on his back.
Yeah, I guess, but see, my whole thing with Westbrook is just pertaining to Westbrook. Like, to me, there were other reasons Westbrook had the case to be MVP. I think the triple-double was cool. And I'm definitely not one of those people that is like, oh, triple-double is just an arbitrary stat. People just came up with that in the 60s because they didn't know what else to do or whatever. It's insane that he averaged a triple-double, right? But I can't get past the fact that he was the first player to win MVP on a sub-50 win team, right?
Yeah.
And then...
again, that's sort of the thing that I go back to of like, okay, he's doing all of this, but they're still losing games. And like, I don't know if you're the most valuable player and your team is losing, like, does it really matter what you're doing at that point?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I do understand of like, my thing always goes to if your team, like how bad is your team? But in like by that argument, then you could just give it to LeBron James every year because like if you take LeBron off of his team, their teams are usually pretty bad. But like it can go either way. My point was like I understand the votes for Westbrook getting that MVP more so than I understand some other MVP voting. Like the year Kobe won it was not the year Kobe should have won it.
Yeah, it should have been Chris Paul. Yeah.
The year that Kobe should have won was one of the Nash years. I can't remember what it was, but it felt like so it felt like the Kobe MVP was like a makeup.
Yeah, the Bill Simmons the Bill Simmons thing that he had about it is like Kobe didn't win the right MVP that year, but he had the right amount of MVPs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I totally agree with that. But yeah, it's not like the Westbrook MVP is something where I understand why he won it and like why he was deserving of it. Where I put him in, like, I understand the argument for him and I can see like, okay, I'm not mad that he won it. Where there's some of them where you're like, bro, there's other candidates that should have won. You know what I mean? Like there's other years where you're like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, like I said, the last 3 weeks of that season, Westbrook like moved up my I uncovered notes that I took at college because I was post college because I'm a dork, and I was cleaning out my closet and found old notes, and I remember like I had Kawhi crossed off. I had Kawhi crossed off and Westbrook at 2 and Kawhi at 3. Just because of those last 2 to 3 weeks, like he had some insane stuff. I do remember a Suns game though where he was clearly chasing the triple double. And even the Suns announcer was just like, okay, this is just getting ridiculous. Like Westbrook was like players were boxing out and clearing the way, letting Westbrook get the rebound. There was just a bunch of egregious shit going on. And so that was just something I remember from that. But I'm not like mad, right, that he won the MVP. I just don't know.
It's just like a thing of like where you look at it, you're like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I understand. Like, I can understand it more so than the other one. Like, the year that I was thinking of, I couldn't think of at the time, but it's the Karl Malone MVP, the 1999 MVP, the
97 MVP. You mean?
The 97 MVP. That year,
people literally got bored.
Yeah,
and not voted for Michael Jordan. They got sick of voting for Michael.
Yeah, and so I don't understand. Like that one, you're like, I don't understand that at all. Like,
yep.
All right, I guess that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know who deserves that award. Maybe some other guy.
Right.
But
yep.
You know, it's stuff like that, right? Like the Westbrook one, I can make an argument for it. I can understand. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get why you voted for him. I'm all right. But like there's some other ones where like you have more of an issue where you're like, I just don't get it at all.
Yep.
All right. So yeah. Any other topic points? Real quick, the Cavs, the Nets are looking to try to get Andre Drummond, Kevin Love, or JaVale McGee somehow, some way.
Yep, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, so I mean, whatever. Real quick, any of them are going to help. Any of them are going to is going to solidify their holes. They need some kind of big man, some kind of presence. So
I would get JaVale, honestly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get Drummond or Kevin Love. That just takes the ball out of players' hands that deserve more touches than those two.
Well, my thing is, if you get Kevin Love and JaVale, then Kevin Love solves your defensive issue down low with JaVale and also gives spacing on the floor on the offensive end.
I don't know if I think Love at this point is a pretty terrible defender. He still adds value passing and spacing the floor. I'll agree with that. Yeah.
And to me, he's still a top tier rebounder in my mind.
Yep. Yeah.
So
he'll finish the defensive possession.
After watching what the Nets have done in the past week,
they can't.
Any kind of rebounding would help.
Yeah, absolutely.
They ran James Harden in the front court.
Man, I am telling you, like, people are still like, oh, I can't believe people are still talking about the Nets defense and the big three like it's not going to work. We're not saying offensively it's not going to work, but defensively there are some real ass concerns. Like, they should be a favorite, but they should not be like a lock to come out of the East. Absolutely not. I am not going to go that far.
I brought this up to someone earlier where they're going to struggle against teams like the Celtics, like the Bucks, like the Lakers, the top tier team. Yeah, they're gonna struggle against top tier teams that can not stop them because no one's going to stop them, but that can slow them down enough because they're not going to stop anyone. So
the only legitimate big man Embiid has I don't think Embiid has faced like a legitimate matchup for him. Like, they were Jokic and Embiid were supposed to play, but COVID protocols or basically ruined that game. But like, if you're seeing what Embiid is doing to the entire league right now, look at who the Nets have to guard that guy.
Yeah, and again, it goes down to a thing where no one's going to stop them on offense, but if you can get a team that's going to slow them down to where they're like, the Nets defense is going to stop anyone. So the better the team can do it slowing them down, they're just going to end up not being able to keep up because their defense isn't going to be able to stop anyone.
Yep.
And like, as soon as that happens, it just puts more and more pressure on your offense. And at that, like, it's so tough, even as great as they all are, it's tough to keep up with a team when you're not stopping anyone.
Yep. They really have to score at an all-time pace if they want to win the title this year, which is it's possible, of course, with these guys.
You run into teams like the Sixers, like the
Bucks,
like
the
Celtics,
Heat,
like the Bucks. Like,
do you see what Bam Adebayo is doing this year so far?
Yeah. Did you see him just like 20 minutes ago try to hit the man that was checking into the game?
No, I did. I haven't been able to.
There's a clip going around. There's a clip going around. He has the ball top of the key where he usually has it, and one of his guys is running to the scores table, ripping off his warm-ups,
and he threw it to him.
He sees out of the corner of his eye as like a cutter to the 3-point line.
Yep,
and tries to hit him, and he hits him. He nails him, but no, he's out of bounds, dude.
Well, no, dude, it brings like. When the Heat played the Nets the first time, Bam gave him 41. Like, yeah, the Nets have nobody to stop these guys, and dude, that's going to be their big weakness.
And Embiid are going to have a field day.
They're going to wreck shop in there. Like,
again, we talked about it last week. They couldn't stop Nikola Vucevic.
No, yeah, they could. Vooch was going off.
Vooch tore him up.
34 and 10 or something like that, and was just making everything over them. Like,
honestly, okay, real talk. Do you trust them to consistently beat a team like the Pacers?
Yes, I do. The Pacers, yeah.
I don't know.
Sabonis, the Pacers will probably take 2 games, or it'll be like a 2-2 tied series, and everybody's like, "Oh, is this it for the?" I think the Nets win that one in 6 or 5 pretty easily right now.
I don't know, because the thing is, like, I have no doubt that the Nets win that series, but I think the Pacers make it real tough for them.
They probably would in a few games, but I just think the Pacers, they don't have. I know they have Sabonis, and Sabonis has taken the leap. He'll probably have a really good series, but like when the Nets game plan for that. I don't know if the Pacers have enough perimeter isolation scoring in the half court, especially in the playoffs when everything gets
Well, like,
condensed.
if Karras comes back, right? You think
Yeah.
Karras comes back, and then you have TJ Warren.
Brogdon's been great this year.
Yeah, so I mean, like, they have enough firepower where if you play through Sabonis and let him make the play, there's a lot of supplementing things that if they get hot, like we've seen the Pacers get hot. If they get hot, they're a tough out, and especially given they're young, they're scrappy, they play good defense. They have the size. They have multiple bigs to throw at them on multiple units. I don't know.
They're a solid team. They are a really solid team.
And I don't think they're a better team. I just think it's a really bad matchup for them, for the Nets. And when you watch them, you go, "Oh, I don't know." Like, I think they should win, but I don't know how hard it is for them to win. And if you're if you're taking, say, like they're the 2nd seed and the Pacers are the 7th seed, and if you're exerting that much energy to beat a Pacers team, and then still have to go through the gambit of the rest of the East, which is probably the Sixers, the Celtics, the Bucks, whatever else you're running into coming out of that series, I don't know if they get to the finals.
Like we were saying, like they're not a lock to come out of the East. I know I was singing the Pacers' praises. They have been struggling recently, but they're still a solid team, and I still want to see them full strength. But yeah, they're a really good team. I just think it's one of those things where I still see the Pacers as a slight tier below the other 3 teams, where if they matched up against the Nets, I would not have answered your question as quickly as I did. I just think the Pacers, they have an advantage. They can go to Sabonis, but at the end of the day, I think the star power for the Nets is too much for the Pacers, whereas that would not matter as much for the Sixers, Bucks, and Celtics, who have star players at positions where the Nets will just get destroyed at, or better players at that position. Sabonis, I don't think is. I want to see actually how he does in these playoffs with him being the guy for the first time. That's the other thing too. But yeah, it would be a tough series for sure. I wouldn't, if they beat the Nets in a series, I would be shocked. But if you told me why, or we watched the series and we figured out why, then it wouldn't be surprising. It would be less surprising, I should say.
Again, I think the Nets win, but I think it's a tougher series. Like to me, it's like it would end up like that Clippers Mavs series where everyone just thought the Clippers would roll them over, and you're like, no, this series is tough. Like they could lose here really easily. Yeah,
Clippers have big wings. They could shut down Doncic, all that stuff, and then the Mavs ended up giving them a tie series, that type of thing.
With no Porzingis. And
Porzingis.
Limping Luka.
Yep. No, yeah, I could definitely see that with the Pacers Nets. But yeah, before we go, I also wanted to say I am really looking forward to the Lakers Sixers game on Wednesday. It's the BOB Bowl. But I'm looking forward to seeing Joel Embiid wreck Anthony Davis like he always does when they match up. The few times they've matched up, but no, I am scared of the Marc Gasol because he's still the Embiid stopper somehow. He's like the only big in the league that's been able to stonewall Embiid in the post.
I feel so bad. So this is like small rant about Marc Gasol. I feel so bad because Marc Gasol gets a ton of Laker hate by casual Laker fans.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand what he brings to the game, and they don't understand how good he is, because they just see like, oh, he's missing shots, or he's getting foul, or like he's fouling or whatever. One, he gets a lot of cheap fouls called on him because he's so big.
Yeah.
Where he's going straight up, but people are bouncing off of him and they call a foul, and you're like, he's going straight, he's not even moving. His arms are up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you want for him? He's just big. Then he doesn't get any calls because, again, he's so big. People are hacking the shit out of him, and no one, like, they just don't call it because he's so big. And then when you watch him, he makes some incredible reads that don't turn into assists or stats, but make an offense flow so much better.
Yeah. Yep.
And you just, and the thing is too, I want him to shoot so bad. He has so many wide open layups and shots that he can shoot and threes that he just doesn't take because
this was the problem with Raptors fans had this problem with Marc.
And you're like, dude, just take these. You can make them. They're
Yep.
wide open. Just take them. And he's like, nah, I'm gonna make a better pass. And you're like, what, Marc? Please, just shoot. And then all of a sudden, Laker fans get pissed off at him. Like casual Laker fans get pissed off at him because you're like, he doesn't do anything. This is the worst signing we've ever made. It's like, dude, we signed Luol Deng. What the fuck's wrong with you?
By the way, you guys are still paying Luol Deng.
Yeah, we're still paying Luol Deng. We signed Timothy Mozgov. Okay, so don't talk shit about Marc Gasol. I'm Marc Gasol.
You are fired up. Damn.
People don't understand how good he is. And I don't get this either. Maybe you can explain this to me. Why do centers keep trying to go at Marc Gasol straight up? You're not going to do anything. He's a mountain.
You're talking to somebody who knows this all too well. Like, Marc Gasol is literally Embiid's kryptonite. Like, for some reason, Embiid has had, like, 2 good games against Marc Gasol in his entire career.
But, like, when you watch bigs, I don't understand. Like, Jokic was trying to do this. I forget who else, like, someone else was trying to do this. And I go, dude, why are you trying to, like... Marc is just standing there going straight up. He's too smart to foul you. He's not going to foul you.
It's funny when Jokic does it, too, because he's like, I'm just going to use my doughy size to back you down and get the shot or pass I want. And Marc Gasol's like, I, too, was a former doughy boy. I know what to do.
Yeah. He's like, I was born in the doughy.
You were molded by it. You were merely molded by it.
He's like, and it's so funny to watch people. And I just go, I look at that and I go, do they know it's not going to work? Like, why do you keep trying to body him up? It doesn't work. He's too big.
You got to get him out in space. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
I don't get it.
Yeah, that Marc Gasol is one of those, like, the casual part of the fan base is just going to rip him because they don't, like you said, they don't see him shooting or scoring as much, especially now at this stage in his career. Fouling a lot. Like, the dude's only gonna, what is his minute count right now? Like, 25 minutes a game? Like, that sounds about right for a center that's as old as he is. I do think there are valid concerns about not having the vertical rim protector, rim protection that you guys had last year. But the defense, once again, is number 1 in the league. You guys have the 7th best offense per cleaning the glass, and you guys aren't even fucking trying. So,
someone told me too. Like, someone was laughing. I was laughing so hard. Someone was saying, some random posted on my Twitter. I made a Laker comment of like, well, this is the kind of game we lose, blah blah. When we lost to the Warriors, and like, I always take those kind of losses as good losses, where it's like, yeah, we got to learn to not take our opponents easy. And like, I hate winning games or like eking out games we should blow teams out in, because like we should be blowing teams out. Like, we can't win games like this. Mm-hmm. It's just going to teach us bad habits later on. And so I actually enjoy losing games where we just don't try and we don't earn it. And so I tweeted something like that out, and some rando responded of like, oh, and you guys think you're the best team in the league and like blah blah, and the Nets, like all this shit. And I was like, I didn't even respond to it, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, do people like this even watch the game?
Nope.
Do they understand the Lakers' effort level at this time?
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that on not just Twitter but the world in general. So such is the story of basketball discourse.
Like Bill Simmons?
Oh wait! Oh my God! Don't even.
Dude, Bill Simmons thinks LeBron's trying. This is as hard as LeBron's tried in his whole career.
That is such an. And look, I have no. Okay, so in this case, I have no doubt Bill Simmons watches Laker games because he lives in LA. But I am convinced he has no idea what he's watching. Because LeBron could not give less than 2 shits. He could not give. If he tried to give more of a shit, he could not. Right now, he'll wake up here and there. Anthony Davis, I think, has also been coasting a little bit, but it's fine. They're gonna be by the playoffs.
It's so funny because I'll watch LeBron and my dad gets pissed too when he watches him. He's like, "Stop fucking smiling! Like you're losing, or like you just missed a dunk. Like stop smiling about it." And LeBron's running down the court, fucking happy-go-lucky. He didn't give a shit. He's just running down the court. Like he'll take like a stupid turnaround 3-point shot, airball it, and then smile it down the court. running down.
Yep.
You're like, what the fuck you doing?
Yep. That's. I mean, I'm not worried about the Lakers at all. I mean, I know you're not either, but I mean,
No.
just let people do the Abe Simpson old man yells at clouds stuff. Not talking about your dad or anything in particular. I'm just talking about people in general doing the yell at the sky thing with LeBron and Marc Gasol. And the Lakers are a really good basketball team already. So
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. Anything else?
Nope. I got a hard out in like 10 minutes, so we definitely, I don't want to speed it up, but we should definitely wrap it up. Because I got to get ready for work.
Ooh.
Got to pay the bills.
Oh, baby. All right, guys. So thank you guys for listening. Sorry for the downer, and we hope that, us talking about Kobe has given you a little bit of a break and sort of brought up bad memories, but also good memories of watching Kobe and the inspiration he was and sort of the icon that he was, but also listening to us rant about Ben Simmons and Marc Gasol and all this stuff.
Absolutely.
I hope you had a good time, and thanks for listening.
The B.O.B.